I have a question though.
Okay.
Is Trae Young officially underrated at this point?
I do. I do think so. I mean, you can't lead the league in assists as often as he has and not expect him to be rated where he is right now. And I wouldn't necessarily say I think people disrespect Trae Young's game, but I do think that there's a lot more that he, is eager to show us. So I think, again, I think this is a big season for him. He's heading into his sixth season. He's got a lot more experience of leading a team to an Eastern Conference final. He's got a new coach under his belt who, likely aligns with what he believes his game is. And so I do think he is. And I do think he should have been somebody who was in serious consideration for Team USA. But yeah, I do think he is underrated. And, I think he's going to come out with a huge chip on his shoulder moving into this season.
I wonder if he's able to function under Quin Snyder without any reports of, oh, this is happening in the locker room or this is happening with the coaching staff, if that could maybe shift perception of him. I think some of it is, okay, he was under 32% on his off the dribble threes last year. Like, we need to see some of his percentage even around the rim dropped, but it seems like they're going to be playing a lot of, they played 4 out anyway when John Collins was there, but if John Collins isn't hitting threes, you're not really 4 out. And so if you can get to more 4 out combinations, he gets to the basket more. And I think he's at his best when he can leverage both the floater and the stuff he does at the rim. He also and you mentioned this, one of the best passers in the league, great at setting up corner threes, great at getting his teammates like buckets at the rim. I think he has become underrated, and it feels like it's all this extracurricular stuff that is pulled away from his rep. Because even defensively, he's still one of the worst defenders in the league, but like, he's not as bad as he was 2 years ago either. And it's just wild to me that it feels like we're lower, or nationally, the perception of him is lower than it was 2 years ago. And I can only pinpoint, okay, it's just because of the rumors about, okay, yes, some of the percentages last year, but they're not talking about his shooting splits when they're criticizing Trae Young. Like, it always kind of comes back to just the defense. And of course, like, oh, what's going on behind the scenes with the coaching staff or his relationship with his teammates.
Yeah, I think it's hard to ignore that reputation and all of that plays a huge role in a lot of the stuff that we see is in terms of player voting for all-stars, coaches voting for all-stars, and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, the outside perception does have a huge, I think, chunk of the factor in how he's perceived. He is kind of perceived as, unfortunately, just because of, like you said, the extracurriculars, a little bit of a jerk. But but when you think about, who he is as a person, you don't necessarily see those factors. I think he knows who he is, and he's very confident in his ability. And I think when he has a coach like Quin Snyder, who he can kind of, I think they talk the same language a little bit more, and I think that will net a lot more positive results. And I think, guys like to make sure that they're consistently learning from the coaches that they're under. And I think sometimes it comes down to, you're not learning anymore, and so unfortunately that can play a role in what happens on the court. It's hard to ignore that. It's hard to ignore the body language that you sometimes see between coaches and players, and all of that sort of stuff. So I do think that his reputation has unfortunately overshadowed what he is capable of, and I think that this will be a big year for him to be able to show that, he isn't who people says he is. And I think, especially when you think about when he's launched a podcast now, and he is trying to open this kind of inside view into who he is off the court. So yeah, I think he's very much aware of what the perception of him is, and I think he does have a little bit of a mixture of, he knows who he is, but he also is willing to start sharing who he is a little bit more now.